Welcome to One Up Fantasy, helping you one up the fantasy football competition. For the latest in Chicago sports news, visit ChiCitySports.com. And now, here are the hosts of One Up Fantasy, Stephen Johnson and Chris Jackle. Kaboom!
Welcome in, one and all, and welcome to another edition of One Up Fantasy here on ChiCitySports.com and the Tape Never Lies Network. I'm Stephen Johnson. He is Chris Jackle, and we are at the halfway point of the regular season in the fantasy world, as it's normally 14 weeks. Heck, it might even be 15 for some of you out there if you're only doing those 4-team playoffs setups in your leagues. But hey, we're here to break it all down. We're here to talk some trade talk with the actual NFL trade deadline just around the corner, as well as some other tidbits that are coming up as well. Jackal, how are you?
Doing all right, Mr. Johnson. Little nor'easter up here in the East Coast, no snow, all rain, a little fun, So if the lights flicker or if, I disappear, then, hey, either the wife cut the power off or Mother Nature did the same. So I hope all's well on your end, not getting into the weeds, but, hey.
Yeah. Yeah, no, not a great day. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah,
not a great day.
Twitter, motherfuckers.
Yeah, my Twitter account was hacked. They changed my password. They changed the email address associated with it. So I am stuck without a Twitter account right now.
That's some bull fucking shit, man. I'm sorry that you're experiencing that, man. I know, you got quite the following on there too. So
yeah, it sucks. So here's the new handle for me. Stephen Shy City in the interim until Twitter gets back up and running. Yeah,
we'll have to get that out to the masses one way or another. Yeah.
This is the week from hell. But hey, we're going to sit here. We're going to talk some fantasy. We're going to get minds off of that bullshit and everything that comes with it.
Yes.
And
week 8, like you said, halfway through the year, which is surprising to say, considering I feel like we were just talking about mock drafts and week 1 surprises and all that other nonsense, but
riding high on Trey Sermon, that led us astray very
holy shit.
Like,
there's a few of them, but there's some stinkers, but at the same time there was some gold that we've dropped, that little nuggets out there for everybody,
Absolutely. There's still plenty to go through here and break down. So we're going to dive right into it. We're actually going to start off of the top here with again those duds that we've been dealing with. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Certain players that just are not performing up to snuff with where you may have drafted them. We had talked about quite a few higher picks, and I think there's even been some guys that have entered that conversation as potential drop targets, considering at least the buy-mageddon or buy-apocalypse, whatever you want to call it, that was week 7. And man, there were some really rough times for quite a few teams out there if you just looked at some starting rosters.
Absolutely.
But again, we're going to circle back here to some of the duds and ask the question again, are they cut candidates now that we are headed down the home stretch? And there's been some decent waiver wire pickups here over the last couple of weeks, and it continues this week. And we'll talk about a couple up later in the show here. But for now, let's start it off with the hometown team, the Chicago Bears. And again, I hate bringing up his name. I hate even saying this as a potential thing here.
Cut him.
Do you just any of them?
Allen Robinson, cut him.
Yep, Allen Robinson. That's the guy. You cut him.
Break it down,
in your
Steven.
mind.
Go ahead.
You're not worrying about it. That's it.
No, I cut his ass. I mean, I just think at this point, and Shane, you're right. I got a little birdie told me about Blake Bortles back in the offseason. And, we were talking about picking him up to start the year. And I like Shane. How you doing, buddy? No, Allen Robinson, cut. He has not done a goddamn thing. I honestly haven't even looked at the stats, but I don't think he's cracked double digits once this season. Granted, his offense is horrible. There's not much to be said. The worst offense in the league, and this is the wrong show for that, to talk about the Bears' performance. But on the fantasy side, it equates to the same thing, So Allen Robinson is a clear cut, in my opinion. I know you have the stats to back that up. So what are your thoughts about Allen?
Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, not only are we talking about, Allen Robinson is a guy that is a potential, cut candidate in fantasy. We're also talking about him being a potential trade
candidate. He's on my trade list.
Yeah. I mean, his best game this year in terms of fantasy points was a 2-catch, 24-yard and 1 touchdown appearance against the Cincinnati Bengals in week number 2.
So what's that?
That's
10.4 points in some
leagues? Yeah. In a full PPR, that's just a little 12 or 10.4.
All right, so I was wrong. Right. He did get over double digits in one game, but still. I think he's like a wide receiver 61. I saw that and I was like, it's just disgusting.
It absolutely is. Really makes you wonder a lot here, just in terms of where the production is, and even some of these games and the targets that he's receiving, they really aren't there either. In the Detroit game, only 3 targets. The Raiders game, 5 targets. Tampa Bay this last week, 4 targets when they should have been passing nonstop. How you only get Allen Robinson the ball 4 times when you're down 30 plus points is beyond me. And it blows my mind that there's this just complete lack of concern over getting him the ball and getting your best playmaker the ball. I don't know if this is some ridiculously long ploy to more or less stick it to him.
Nagy's that mastermind who's like, we're not going to pay Allen Robinson $20 million next year. I don't give a fuck if I'm here or not. But we're just not going to make sure he gets his money. God damn it. Honestly, he's a guy that's benefited from being on shitty teams that needed to throw the ball towards the end of games. He was like the fantasy mop-up guy that he put up good numbers. And I'm not shitting on what he's done in the league, but it's just, there's a lot of guys that are on bad teams that put up great numbers that aren't necessarily solid NFL receivers. They're just opportunistic players. It's like a compiler in the Major League Baseball that gets, 2,000 hits or whatever, but he's been in the league for 20 years. It's like, it's a little different if you've only been in the league 10 years, With that being said, it's the only time I'm going to say it. I just don't see how anybody would want to hold on to him at this point. You got to get rid of him. There's many other players that you could get off the waiver wire. The T.Y. Hilton shit you could get right now on pretty much any league, and he's going to outproduce him in his second game back. It's pretty wild. Would not think we'd be saying that at this point with Allen Robinson's career or season, especially with the contract coming up. But franchise tag or not, it's just sad.
It definitely is, because I mean, he was considered one of the safest picks in his tier.
He was my keeper in my league that I had in one of my leagues this year, but with like the 12th pick.
Yeah,
it's 12th round. I had him 2 years ago, and I thought it was a good move, and it's just totally backfired this year.
Hey, we can't win them all, right?
No, I hope so. But hey, what are you going to do? Win some, you lose some. Can I keep this on the wide receiver train though, and throw another one your way?
Let's do it.
And a little bit more surprising, but I think Julio Jones at this point is a guy that you can consider dropping. There's only been one game, 6 catches, 128 yards, week 2. I think it was week 2. And he has not exceeded 60 yards outside of that one game. There's just, again, speaking of other options, regardless of it's a 10-league format, 12-league format, there are wide receivers out there that will give you the same or more sitting right there. You may not even spend some money. You could get them, tomorrow morning when you wake up, when you're doing your morning glory, It's just so I did not see that in this offense. I thought he was going to eat all day. He's killed me personally on a couple of my teams where I thought he was going to outperform AJ Brown, and I guessed wrong. What are your thoughts?
Right now, because he's got 17 catches for 301 yards. That's where his current stat line is sitting.
No touchdowns. I mean, he's not getting in the end zone.
Yeah, he's really never been a touchdown guy, which has
True.
been the most mind-boggling thing. I mean, you look at his career. I believe his career high was 10, and that was his second year in the league. But past that, he's never eclipsed 8. It's weird, especially for a guy like him who racks up the yardage the way that he does. He just doesn't seem to have that scoring bug built into his game, at least to an elite wide receiver that you expect, out of Julio. But yeah, 32 years old. It was starting to get to a point where it's like, okay, is the end near? Last year, only 771 yards in his last year with the Falcons. I think as far as what he's last year, he had 3.
Right, sorry,
he had 3 touchdowns last year. The other thing too, because I think on pace wise, he is currently in the ballpark. If I can do math quickly, it's going to be really about the same in terms of average that what we're looking at what he did last year with the Falcons, where it's around 51 catches, 700, 800 yards, and
there's 12 guys out right now that are doing that are on average for that.
Right.
On the waiver wire.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it this way. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders is on pace for 1,000-yard season.
Yep.
And I mean, you could have gotten him for free just about anywhere when this season began. And like you mentioned,
he's on my squad.
Yeah. And I hate like thinking about it, but yeah, like the way that just not only the production, but also the injury history, the hamstring problems that he's continuously had, the foot problems that he's had.
Yeah.
It's rough.
It's something every year. That's a good point. I didn't even think about the injury concern. I just went from the straight standpoint of the first 7 weeks have been dog shit. And it's like, I can get better replacements. It's like Moneyball. You lose Giambi. You're not trying to replace him. You get a couple of guys that get what he needs. You could get 2 running backs or 2 wide receivers, but you probably get more out of the value just for one. Cut him and add Michael Pittman or add shit. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't have a list in front of me, but T.Y. Hilton is a guy that I think a lot of people are trying to grab right now. So say him, for example. I saw him in like 3 leagues projected in a PPR, I think like 14.6 points. I think Julio's always projected for like 15 to 17, and he's always getting 8 to 9, like and it's go fuck yourself. So it sucks. But yeah, that's a guy that I'm really low on, and I'm stashing him on my bench. On one league, I dropped him in another. So like I said, I gambled on him. I lost, cut my losses on one, and I hedged. I'm gonna see if I can hedge my bet on another, stash him, and see if he comes through.
Right. And the other thing to keep in mind here really was kind of a red flag heading into the season as well, as his yards per reception in outdoor games on turf is lower than the dome environment that he spent his entire career in Atlanta. And so I want to say there was like that possibility in the back of the mind that said, okay, is this going to translate more over the course of a full season of him playing more outdoors and out of that element that he was so used to? And the answer seems to be yes. But again, he's also 32. So I'd probably say it's a good mix of things that ultimately, tie into that. But
give me another one. We talked a couple wide receivers, but I'm curious, what do you think? Is there anybody quarterback or running back on your mind?
Running back, a new injury at running back. Tell us you haven't heard that line before. An injury at running back.
Which one?
Miles Sanders. I know we talked about him a few weeks ago, but now he's got a sprained ankle. Doesn't seem to be as severe as they initially thought when he was carted off of the field on Sunday. But here we are, Kenneth Gainwell with an opportunity to maybe take the reins in that backfield. Yep. Scott also was well there at the ready to take on that goal line and up the middle work. Is this potentially the end of Miles Sanders' time being the guy in Philly?
We've had many conversations so far this year about Miles, right? I do think it's slowly it's been trending in the wrong direction for him on fantasy as well as just his roster spot. I think this is Kenneth Gainwell's chance to really demonstrate his worth to the Eagles. I also think they may be a candidate for a running back before the trade deadline. They may try to get a guy to try to help them out, maybe a David Johnson. And we're going to get to some trade candidates down the way, but I think they could possibly make a play for a running back if they want to try to salvage the season. I think the Eagles aren't that good. I just think I think at this point you can't trust them. We've had the fact that we keep bringing it up just goes to show that he's not turning it around. And it's halfway through the season. Some teams are even sliding on, they're already going downhill towards their playoffs. So it's either try to package him with somebody and get rid of him and try to, or sorry, see you later, pal. And see if you can get his replacement Gainwell.
Yeah, it's and again, Gainwell had a pretty solid game overall. Had a touchdown right off the bat in their game against the Raiders on Sunday, and I don't know. I don't know what it is about that coaching staff that just never put the trust in Miles Sanders, but now, and the fact that there's probably going to be missed time, and God knows how much it's actually going to be, that's going to play a factor. It's definitely going to play a factor down the stretch, especially with a muddled situation that we're already kind of dealing with in Philadelphia after a lot of people thought he was going to be the bell cow guy, and that's certainly not the case now, and even further from the truth probably when it's all said and done. So I have him on a cut list, especially if you have to go out there and you need to get one of his backups, just with the way that the running back position overall, that again we've talked about many times, is just not what it should be due to injuries, due to various circumstances, and some guys just not performing to the point that we anticipated them to. It's just
happens every season. I mean, there's always guys, Leonard Fournette a couple years ago was a guy that I just remember having high hopes. He taped that $100 bill on his back of his pads, and next thing you know, he was shipped out for, I think, like 12 used footballs and a 6th-round draft pick, and now look at it. I mean, he's back to like Leonard Fournette pre-bullshit, and the fucking
touchdown
Bucs.
Lenny.
Yeah, exactly. So who knows? This may just be a rough patch for him. He's still a young buck. He could end up a change of scenery guy, but I mean, the Eagles fucked up with Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard's like 27 years old right now, and he's out of the league. They had an opportunity to use a guy that I thought the Bears should have held on to, but we're not going to go down that path. But I'm with you. I'd be cutting bait.
Yep. It's how quickly they fall, I think, is the best way to put it. For what they have there.
For those NFL running backs is definitely, short and sweet. Try to cash in when you can. I get it.
Absolutely. Another wide receiver here I had on my list. I had a lot of hype coming into the season, but the usage is there. It's just the production isn't necessarily translating with the amount of touches that he's getting, and that's Leviska Shenault down in Jacksonville. He had 10 targets last week against Miami prior to their bye week, only put up 54 yards, catching 6 of those 10 targets, but has yet to eclipse 100 yards. In only one game has he eclipsed more than 58 yards and has scored 0 touchdowns on the year. Is Leviska Shenault, despite the gadget-esque ability that he brings to the table for the Jacksonville offense, a cut candidate? Yeah.
So it's tough because Trevor Lawrence is demonstrating some growth. He is showing over the last he put up a good performance last week. Not great, but good. I think, he's showing that, hey, it's more not the environment, but he's on a shitty team, and he is producing. The game is starting to slow down for him a little bit, and he is showing that with his play on the field. DJ Shark is out for the year, and you would think that he'd equate to more fantasy production for him, but it's not. He's a tough one for me. I may look to see if he could have a bounce back week. I'd ride him on the bench maybe one more time, and if he just underproduces, maybe cut him next week. But I could see why he'd make your cut list, Steven. I definitely could. I understand the logic there. It may be premature just based on where I feel Lawrence is. If he makes another jump next week, that could just mean a couple more targets and a couple more completions for him. If it's a tutter, then you're looking at another, it's a 7 to 10 point swing. A 6 point day becomes a 16 point day, so it's who knows. I give him one more week on my side, but I also see why you're looking to cut a dude.
Yeah, it's I will say it's getting a little aggravating
Yeah,
that he continues to do this, and you just wonder how much longer you can put up with it again at a position that has some depth to it at wide receiver, at least in terms of what that floor might be. And again, the targets are there. It just makes me wonder just how much more needs to be done in order to really get things rolling. But hey, here we are dealing with the fun of it. I'm kind of with you that I don't necessarily want to let him go, but man, it is getting so damn painful just watching him week after week not put it together with what's out there on the field.
It's tough too, because we just talked about other guys that you could probably pick up on the waiver wire. I see why you'd want to drop him and try to replace it, but it's a guy that you probably drafted kind of high, expecting production there, and it's like, But I also suggested Julio Jones,
and Miles Sanders. It's like,
hey, that's why we're talking about him. So that's why they're making this list. Yeah. We wouldn't be talking about him if there wasn't significance, I guess. So, I guess we win some, you lose some.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right.
Well,
all right.
In addition to cuts, and the things that are happening across the not so great parts of fantasy land, the actual trade deadline in the NFL is coming up here in just 1 week from today. So next time you see us, we'll be potentially breaking down some trades. It might have some fantasy impact, but in the meantime, it's fun to speculate. It's fun to see just who may be on the move, who really does make the most sense for some certain teams, as we know that there have been some position players that either A, haven't had the opportunity, or B, just haven't gotten it going, that might be put into a brand new spot. It's just a matter of, will they actually get things going in the right time here? So we'll talk about a couple hypotheticals, a couple guys that we think may or may not get Das Boot via trade, and whether it may or may not mean some good things for fantasy overall, because honestly, there's starting to look like quite a few teams that are just not ready to go ahead and try and compete in 2021. So why not collect all that draft capital while you can? That's ultimately what it comes down to. We talked about this guy off the top, but I got to come back to him again here. Is there any possibility that Allen Robinson gets traded from the Bears if they get spanked on Sunday against the Niners?
Yeah. Oh, I think it's a real possibility. I think, I think Pace may be looking to do anything to try to salvage this season in terms of what can we do for the future. This is not a Super Bowl contending team. We've talked about that ad nauseum on TTNL, and as Bears fans, we can see the writings on the wall. If they could get a draft pick or a play, but then again, what are you going to get for Allen Robinson at this point? A 6th round draft pick, a 4th round draft pick. they need draft capital for next year. We moved a bunch of picks to get Fields. I know we recouped one with one of the trades we did this year. Pace has been able to make some magic with some of those types of moves in the past. The Bears, they're not going to re-sign him. So, hey, if we're not going to do anything, want to bring somebody in and it's going to help down the road, I'm all for it. I could definitely see that happening, and, you know, us talking about it on Tuesday.
Now, in terms of landing spots that make sense and may actually be of some support to whatever Allen Robinson's 2021 has been so far, there's a couple that come to mind, whether or not they actually do make any sense. For whatever reason, I keep coming back to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Ooh. Okay.
I don't know why, but watching that offense has been painful, absolutely painful. And to put another playmaker on the opposite side of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce in that system with Patrick Mahomes just feels so right. But I don't
they're
know if
fucked though, because Patrick Mahomes' brother danced on Sean Taylor's number, and just the football gods have said you are fucked for the rest of the year for that, and they deserve it. Personally, that's my opinion. You know, not shared of the One Up Fantasy podcast, but I just can't stand that little fuck did that. And
yeah,
you know, this is what happens when you mess with the football gods.
Right.
Well, you know, if they traded for Allen Robinson, he'd probably get hurt. That's how that would happen. But
right, I
see the Ravens being a landing spot for him as well. But go ahead with, you know,
yeah,
Chiefs.
No,
I was
going to say this. I would say equal blame also going to Washington for putting the on-field standing area on the actual memorial spot on the field, which in itself is just pathetic.
And they announced it like 4 days before the event itself, when if you were going to retire a man of Sean Taylor's, you know, stature and, you know, what he stood for, I think he deserves more than 96 hours of preparation, in my opinion.
No. And I do know a couple people who were at the game. They said it was the most half-assed ceremony you will ever witness.
That's the Washington football team. I mean, that's what they are. The fucking travesty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get your shit
together. Hey, apparently the Chicago Blackhawks trying to give them a run for their money, but that's a whole nother conversation that we can get
different show
on a different show on a different day.
All right.
You mentioned the Ravens. Honestly, I could definitely see that. I do believe that they are pretty set seeing what they got out of Rashad Bateman, though, in his game back and really getting things going. But at the same time, I mean, they got their asses handed to them against the Bengals. So it's like maybe they do need the extra help. Maybe that does make sense. We're seeing Ace in the chat mention the Colts. Again, if T.Y. Hilton doesn't stay healthy, you got to match somebody up with Michael Pittman.
And Carson Wentz is looking like, you know, the guy over there. 1 interception, 11 touchdowns. Granted, still playing on 3 sprained ankles, but I mean, the dude is getting it done, you know. Still out there in a lot of leagues if you need somebody. Just saying. I think we talked about him last week, but yeah.
Here's another hypothetical, though. This came to mind, and I the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know, it's not terrible, especially considering the fact that A-Rob probably ain't going to come back next year under any circumstances. You just make a simple swap.
A-Rob, I like these. A-Rob
for OBJ.
2 malcontents for
Beckham Jr. Just get him to new places. Let him reset. You don't lose a wideout. I don't know. There's something about, like, I thought about it and I'm like, you know, how much worse could it get? How much worse could it get?
You're basically trading in like a 2011 Ferrari, a red Ferrari for a green one. It's like you're getting the same fucking car with the fucked up transmission. You know, they got bum knees. It's like it's a matter of when, you know, not if something's going to happen. Unfortunately, I'd love OBJ. I'd love OBJ and A-Rob on the same team, but you know, that's not going to happen. But anything. I'll take anybody trying to do something for the Bears to improve their football team. I'm cool with that,
Right.
And if they could do something like that and it equated to some wins or development for Justin Fields and giving him that dynamic playmaker that they just lack outside of David Montgomery, then shit, I am for that. But yeah, I just don't know if OBJ is the guy you want to bring in for, granted, not the Bears being a super young team, because I don't believe they are. I think they're one of the older teams, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
So it's not like you have a bunch of rooks you got to worry about. But I don't know. I could see, hey, who are we? But at the same time, why not? Let's shake it up. If it's not OBJ, then Robbie Anderson or I don't know, somebody out there.
Somebody who can catch the ball.
Yeah.
That's all we need. Is somebody who can catch the ball. Just anybody.
Cherie really wants OBJ.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of OBJ not going well in the chat, which again, he brings his own baggage, as we all know, during his time with the Giants as well as his time in Cleveland. So you kind of know what you're getting into. And I mean, really, I guess if you want the entire thing to blow up and you really want Nagy gone, he might be the perfect guy to bring in.
Oh, yeah. See Nagy's head blow off. Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe it's some sabotage. That's all that's needed. That's what it ultimately comes down to. The elephant in the room, though, at the trade deadline, the hot stove was heating up pretty well this last week about him being potentially on the move, a guy that has not played this year due to some legal situations that are currently brewing down in Houston, and that being quarterback Deshaun Watson, linked to the Miami Dolphins, linked to the Carolina Panthers, among other teams. Do you think he gets traded? Do you think he plays in 2021? And if so, is he worth the pickup? If so.
All right. So I'm not a big fan of Mr. Watson. I just think it's tough, all the nonsense with him, and it's hard to support a guy and to cheer for, even think about having him on my fantasy team. Granted, there's probably guys on some of my rosters that have done some stupid, dumb shit and horrible things. I don't think so, actually, but now that I say it, the NFL doesn't know what to do with them. They haven't done anything with it. They said today they don't have enough evidence or enough of the information to make a statement. If I read it correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. This chatter about him going to Miami, I don't know how you trade 3 first-round draft picks for a guy that you have no fucking idea if he's going to be able to play now, next year. It's wild to me. And yeah, I mean, he could get traded. Great. I just, he's not going to.
Will he play?
Yeah, exactly. It's like everybody had him on waiver pickups and all their lists, like you're reading about. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, the dude, he's been a practice squad wide receiver, safety, or whatever he's been doing. It's like the guy's not. I don't know. I hear you. I get it. Do you feel like he's going to get traded? I mean, he very well could to the Dolphins.
I think he's going to get traded at some point. It might end up being in a deal similar to kind of what the Colts did with Carson Wentz, where it's a conditional pick based on how much he plays or appears for the team that's trading for him. Mm-hmm. I can't see him playing this year. And to your point about him being on all these waiver lists, it was a lot of head scratching that was happening from my end, where I'm like,
it was like just clickbait bullshit. Like, I'm like, how is this guy even making a top 50 list for waiver pickups? There's so many, but hey, I get, you need to get people in traction to your sites and shit, but hey.
Right. And there were a couple legal experts out there that were just kind of voicing their opinion on it. And the fact that it's really, really bizarre that it's taken this long to get through and get answers to these 22 civil suits, as well as I believe there's 10 criminal complaints. There have been no actual charges filed. They're just complaints. Mm-hmm. But the fact now that we're going on 6-7 months of this and no end in sight, no answers, it's all very bizarre. It makes zero sense to them. And those are people that are in law, that understand the system, that understand that, yeah, sometimes things do take time, but in terms of comparable cases, at least on a smaller scale, because obviously there aren't a lot of people out there who are currently dealing with this magnitude and this number of charges or assaults or whatever you want to call it, that it's still a little odd for them. So I don't know. I can't imagine a scenario in which any team gives up significant capital. Maybe it starts at a 3rd round pick and it can make its way up to a 1st and an extra pick. I mean, really, I don't understand trading away any type of future for any of these teams for something like that. It just makes zero
Talent-wise,
sense.
all day long, I get it, right? You know?
Right.
But
Well,
yeah.
and the other thing too is the fact that, you know, you got teams like the Eagles who are currently sitting on 3 first-round picks. Like, they have the ability to go out and just say, "Hey,
the Dolphins,
here
same
you
thing.
go.
Yeah.
We're probably going to get the Dolphins' top 3 pick at the rate the Dolphins are playing." I think if the season ended today,
That's crazy.
it's pick number 2.
Yep.
Just for the Dolphins to move back up and grab Jalen Waddle. It's man, it's painful. It's painful.
A lot of head scratchers.
Yeah, a lot of head scratchers. But I can't foresee, at least in my mind, any opportunity of me going out and picking up Deshaun Watson to play in 2021. If it does happen, I'll be shocked. I will be absolutely shocked if he takes a single snap this year, just based on the simple fact that it's so much stuff hanging over his head, whether it's
just
true or not.
Yeah, it's just a piggyback. Sorry, just stepping on you there. He's rostered in like 18% of the leagues. I'm like, how is that even like? And I saw Ralphie pick. There was a couple of guys that stash him, but there's no fucking way the guy's gonna play. It's mind-boggling that he's even on that many rosters. 1 in 5 rosters. That's pretty numbing to me. But hey, I'm a guy that had just dropped Trey Sermon, so whatever.
Hey, I think we all need to drop him at this point. God forbid we don't. We hold on to this guy that can't get a single touch on a damn game.
There's a couple minor trades that I was thinking about too, though, like some fringe guys that I like. Hayden Hurst, a guy that's in Atlanta, right? He's a dude. The tight ends, we talked about them not ad nauseum because they're so valuable, but we've talked about them so much. Like, he's a guy who had great potential. Pitts fell in Atlanta's lap. They drafted him. So he's on a contract year. Who knows? They move him. He may be a guy to keep an eye on where you could get him towards your end of your, pick him up on the waiver wire if he gets moved. He ends up helping you towards the end of the season on a late playoff push because you drafted wrong or an injury at your tight end spot. Like Knox is knocked out right now. So it's, it's something to think about. And I brought up David Johnson before, like a team like Buffalo, who's been using the back and forth with Singletary and Moss. I was just reading, a couple people were talking about he's a great backfield, back out of the back, a receiver out of the backfield. And instead of using that platoon and trying to pick and choose your poison, they could just go with David Johnson as the 3rd down threat, or they're passing down, whatever they, just gives them another horse in the stable where they, that's a nice little running back by committee. Singletary's been doing okay. And Moss has had his ups and downs as well. Robbie Anderson, another dude, trade candidate. Panthers suck. They're not going to do anything. Drop Darnold,
they
do whatever.
Without McCaffrey.
yeah, but he's now IR 3 weeks at least. They're going to look to just pack it in my opinion. Try to get a low draft pick. I mean, not that there's a great quarterback out there, but they could go make a move. They were looking to try to get into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes before all this happened. So, obviously they're trying to go out and get a quarterback. So who knows who's going to be available in the offseason this year coming up. Maybe Russell Wilson is available or somebody like that falls in their lap. Baker Mayfield doesn't get re-signed or whatever. There could be any kind of situation that presents itself. Or like one of the ones I thought was interesting was Mark Ingram returning to Baltimore. Texans just, a guy that's been in Baltimore. He didn't fall out of favor. got a little, long in the tooth, if you will, and they went with the youth movement, and then they got decimated by injuries. Why not bring a guy back that knows the system, has been there before, and he'd probably get pennies on the dollar. And he'd probably have some fantasy significance because there's no fucking healthy back. I mean, they got all the vets. It's just a band of guys over there. But, I food for thought, just some trade ideas that I was, doing the research for that. I stumbled across, and I was like, you know what? I think Stephen might like those.
Just trying to help all of those Houston running backs get out of purgatory. Wow. Down with a horrific team. Speaking of Houston, another guy, just quickly, Brandon Cooks. I don't know if he's going to get traded again. He's been traded up 10 billion times over the course of his
33
career.
out of 32 NFL teams, I think, at this point, right? He's going to be. He's already been on the next expansion team. The guy's been on fucking every team, man. It's crazy.
And he continues to put up numbers wherever he goes. It wouldn't shock me if it happens again, honestly, just with the fact that he's
Chicago.
Oh man, I would love that. I've always loved Brandon Cooks as a player. He just does the little things that make you appreciate what he can do on the field, which go a very, very long way.
Do you remember that? Oh my God. I felt, anyway, that's like my memory of him in a Patriots uniform out this way, living in New England was him getting absolutely decleated. But yeah, it come to Chicago. I'm with Ralph. If Cooks came to Chicago, I'd be happy. Allen Robinson for Cooks in some weird fantasy trade.
It just, well, I think we can pull like a third round or second round pick out of Houston too at the rate that they trade. But then again, Bill O'Brien isn't there anymore, so we probably can't pull the wool over the eyes quick. Yeah.
Any other trade candidates or anybody that you're thinking of?
No one that really comes to mind personally. I will say this, and we can kind of transition to this as well here. Still keeping in the trade realm, but talking about potential trade targets that you specifically need to keep an eye on here as your league's deadline comes up and gets moving here, because it will be hitting in a couple weeks, if not I believe it's mid-November is when things really start to pick up there. It's around week 9, week 10, so really 1, 2, 3 weeks away once all of that kicks off here. There are a couple buy low guys I really wanted to talk about them, and we both have some names to break down. And one guy coming back from injury that will be happening this week, and we're gonna head to the Mile High City and Jerry Jeudy. Love Jerry Jeudy. The way that he plays and the game that matches up so damn well with what Teddy Bridgewater does throwing the ball. People need the reminder that in week 1 against the Giants, he had 6 catches for 72 yards. He was piling up the points until he came down with that injury, and he is back at it. He gets Washington, who is horrific against the pass.
Welcome back game.
So a fantastic welcome back game. And I mean, there's projections that have him down, I think, in I want to say the 8 or 9 range. I've got him more in the 14, 15 range. I think he's going to come out guns blazing with the way that this offense runs and the fact that they've really just missed what he does as a playmaker. So again, if he is sitting on your waiver wire, and you'd be amazed at how many times I've seen it. Go get him.
He's right on my list tonight.
Put in the bid, get it done. Same thing goes for going out and trying to trade for him. You could probably grab a bench piece if there's a guy that has him that is short on running backs and you've got a plethora there. Do it. Same thing if he's short at quarterback. Do it there. You might be able to get it done if you got a trade partner who's been able to withstand the injury and isn't necessarily
or just another receiver
coming back.
A stable receiver that just is more, and you're banking on Jeudy coming back, and you know what? It's my watch is talking to me. Did you hear that? That's pretty good. All right. It's a British guy, apparently.
Yeah, just sow the seeds of doubt. I guess.
Hi, NSA, how you doing? But
always listening. Always listening. Maybe that's how
always,
my account got hacked. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great pick. I think Judy is a guy that you should definitely look to pick up on the waiver wire, but realistically, he's probably coming off a lot of teams' IRs. And I think he's a great guy that you could go after and trade for. It's a great one, Stephen. I think, like you said, filling a gap for another team's roster in that trade offer, isn't going to be hard to do based on all these injuries. And if you're sitting in that luxury where you're running back heavy or you're even receiver heavy, make a move 2-for-1 or a 1-for-1 straight up. Or if dynasty, you could throw in, you may have to do a little bit more, bargaining to get a guy like that because he's going to produce and he's a beast. So yeah, that's a good one, man.
All right. How about you? What do you got?
So there's a couple, the obvious to me is like a guy like Patrick Mahomes. There's been so much talk about him just having his worst year as a professional. He has been god awful, but I'm going to actually stay in the same division. I'm going to go with the Bengals wide receiver, T. Higgins.
Okay.
I think he's a trade candidate that you could get on the cheap. I think he's a guy who gets plenty of targets with Jamar Chase and Boyd on that team. He's still number 2 in targets. And at this point, he is a wide receiver 2 on that team. Unfortunately, he's had his ups and downs. I think that offense is too good. It's not like the Phoenix. It's not like Arizona Cardinals type of caliber at this point, but they are just Joey Burrow and Jamar Chase and CJ they're dominating. Boyd, and I think Higgins is going to do his thing also. He's just had some bad luck. I think he's a guy that, similar to your strategy with respects to filling, somebody else's need on their roster, he's a guy that you may sell low or sell high in a guy you have that you picked up off the waiver wire, and you're going to get someone's top 8 pick, 8th round pick for that, in my opinion. And that's sometimes how I look at the logic when I make these types of trade offers. So he's a guy that I wouldn't mind targeting.
No, absolutely. I mean, he had 15 targets in the Baltimore game. I mean, that's
43
a hefty
targets on the year. Yeah,
man, he's eclipsed double-digit targets twice. So that goes to show you that consistency, it might not always be that high, but still, the fact that there's a guy getting you that many targets per game, it has to translate at some point. That's ultimately what it comes down to, is it has to translate at some point. And I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping at some point they figure it out, they get it going, and really, the more Jamar Chase does, the more it's going to open it up for T. Higgins.
Exactly.
I think teams are really starting to realize just how good Jamar Chase is. Obviously having a hell of a game against the Ravens and the blowout victory there. But yeah, no, T. Higgins, he's underrated even for what he's doing now. And, you can argue that he's underperforming, but I think it's one of those where he's on the cusp of having those breakout games and being that reliable wide receiver too. So yeah, definitely before that blow up game happens, I can't disagree with you there. It's a good play to go out and find somebody, especially like I said, getting that type of production, getting that type of target share that doesn't exist at the value that he's currently at, for sure.
Any running backs or any other receivers that you may try to target?
So another
tight ends?
another running back here. I go back and forth on this guy because I partially blame whether or not the coaching staff will do what they need to do in order to get him the ball more often, but damn it, they need to get him the ball. It's Javonte Williams in Denver. I'm just sticking Denver nonstop here. But my God, like I don't
He
know
looked good last
why
week.
they continue. Like I know Melvin Gordon's the vet. He brings that rough and tumble, those tough yards up the middle.
Politics over performance, I think. That money they're
Javonte
paying
Williams
him,
had 4 touches against Cleveland. 4. Oh, you're a guy who's averaging well over 5 yards a carry his last 4 games. So last 4 games against Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Vegas, and Cleveland. 6.9 yards a carry, 7.6 yards a carry, 4.8 yards a carry, and 5
beast
yards a
mode.
carry.
Yeah.
And again, they're just, I don't know why they just won't give him the damn ball. But for whatever reason, instead of giving him the ball on the ground, they decided to give it to him through the air. And he had 6 catches for 32 yards in a score against Cleveland. I don't really quite understand what Denver is doing with him. If they're just kind of letting him get acclimated with everything, maybe that's it. But you look at the back end of the schedule. They got Kansas City. They have Detroit. They have Cincinnati. They have Vegas. I mean, those are some games.
That's time to eat. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting to a point where he's going to tee off. And at some point, Vic Fangio has to say, listen, we got to get the rookie more. We got to get him more work. And that's all there is to it. It's just a matter of if they will actually allow him to do it. And I want to put my faith in them. And right now he's like a low end RB2. So maybe you can get him for a decent deal. But I if there's a guy that I think is going to get some breakout games piled up here relatively quick, my money would be on Javonte Williams.
I like that. He's a guy that we talked about beginning of the season. And we were talking about him having this like mid to late season blossoming as when was he going to take over Melvin Gordon? Basically was the conversation. I mean, a little late in terms of, I think what we thought. We were talking like maybe we're week 4 to 6. We're on the later end of that, obviously. But the other side of it, one more running back I just want to throw on the list is a guy that a buy low candidate is Aaron Jones. Fuck the Packers, but Aaron Jones is a guy I think fantasy wise who he's struggling. I mean, last week he's not, doing all that well, averaging 15.6 carries, 3.8 receptions through week 2 through 6. He had 6 touchdowns. He has 6 touchdowns this year. But he's just kind of stunk it up the last couple of games. And I think he's a guy that people who are desperate either are on a bad team and have him, you may be able to say, all right, I'm going to go target this guy, try to give him somebody of some value, whether it's, another running back or a 2-for-1. You may be able to get a guy like Aaron Jones, who's he's not having the best year compared to what they were anticipating him going into this year, coming off such a stellar last year where, he played 14 games, rushed for 1,100 yards. And I don't remember how many touchdowns he had. I think it was 9 on the ground. Just not having that type of production this year. He's a guy you could probably target and try to sneak on your squad for a strong playoff push if you have that luxury to try to make a trade at this point for a guy like that. And I always scour towards the bottom of my divisions or my leagues to see who's struggling and who doesn't have the best record.
Who's ready to give up?
Yeah, who's looking to try to make a move to, hey, can I get to 500 and maybe sneak in on that 6 or 8, 6 spot in the playoffs or whatever? And who knows? I've been on that side and made some moves that have helped you or hurt you. So just food for thought. He's a guy on my list. Anybody else you rattle off on a trade candidate?
There's honestly not a whole heck of a lot that sticks out to me at tight end. Somebody mentioned CJ Uzoma in the comments. Yeah. He's a wild one, similar to what like Tyler Lockett is in Seattle, where you can either get a big game or you can get a dud. Yeah. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I don't really see much. Maybe you could argue a very cheap option at Gronk if you want to pick him up before he gets moving again in Tampa. But as we all know, he's open to any type of injury over the course of his career. So again, you're playing with fire there. That's ultimately what it comes down to, is you're playing with fire, and whether or not that actually pays off, Godspeed. That's really all I have to say is Godspeed. Rashad in the chat here with Zach Ertz. I can't imagine going out and, I mean, great first game with the Cardinals. Fantastic.
Yeah.
First game with the Cardinals. I don't want to pay up on those prices though. I just like that's paying at the tippy
right
top.
For that. Yeah, he's a shiny new toy.
Yeah, it's not necessarily something that you want to do, but at the same time,
if you need a guy and you budgeted well and you had that fat, you could make that move. I mean, you could definitely go and try to get him. Yeah, you said Gronkowski, and there's talk of him coming back soon, and he's averaging 19.5 fantasy points, leads all tight ends this year. So with him coming back, that's a good thing for fantasy owners that have him on the IR. There's I thought that was a very interesting stat that I read. I just wanted to share. You brought that up, and hey, why not? Thought I'd add that.
Yeah, why not?
20%. Noah Fant's target share is 20% so far this season.
That's going to go down with
really
Judy,
high,
though.
and with Judy. And so I see Rashad saying that in the chat, and so that is really high, but that is definitely going to change come week 8 with Jerry Judy coming back.
I mean, if you want to sell high guy,
that's a guy to sell.
Your guy. Yeah. Fant's probably your guy.
Rashad, trade him right now and start Ertz. I mean, if you got Ertz on your bench, you can probably get somebody.
Make the switch.
Yeah.
Saw what was in the comments there. We had Sherry with more Metcalf and Jefferson start too. I'm starting Metcalf and Jefferson
all day. I dropped Rondell Moore.
Yeah, well, the question is it Rondell Moore? Is it DJ Moore? I guess.
Oh yeah. Even based on all three, it's got to be DJ out of those three, in my opinion, because they're all really good.
Yeah, well, and just the fact we don't really know.
Is Blake Bortles? No, that's Shane. Never mind. Sorry.
Well, the question is
I would
PJ
go Metcalf
Walker
and Jefferson.
Yeah, it's I'm there with you too. If PJ Walker is starting in Carolina, I don't know what to make of that, because if the benching of Sam Darnold was a long-term thing, with the fact that Sam Darnold has looked like just
shot across his bow.
Yeah, that's a passing game you might just want to avoid for a week or two until that one gets situated. And
I like PJ. I mean, he was awesome in the XFL, could zip that cool looking ball around the field, and did well, but he did what he played last year and did pretty well during the pandemic, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
It's a great story. I'd love to see him make a name for himself in Carolina. And hey, shit, if you supplant Darnold, and he's out of town anyway. They didn't pick up that 5th-year option, right?
Right.
So, I don't know.
Or maybe they did. I can't remember.
I don't remember. Hopefully someone in the chat can, but there was another one here. Cortland Sutton or T. Higgins this week.
They did pick it up. Oh, God.
They did?
Yeah.
Well, it's 1 year. I mean,
painful.
If it,
yeah.
If they draft somebody on rookie money, then
right. Bob Loblaw.
I know we said T. Higgins is a guy to try to trade and get, but I like Cortland Sutton. I think he's a guy who just continues to put up numbers. You're making a face, Steven. Talk to me, because I want to bring up. He's on my sleeper. He's on my TTNL squad.
I like Sutton's matchup. I will say I might like Higgins a little bit more going up against the Jets.
Really? Ooh, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I gotta lean Higgins because I don't know how the target share is going to be divvied up with Judy back. That
Good
worries
call.
me a little bit. So
That is a good call.
I lean Higgins. I lean Higgins there.
See, and so my brain, when you say that, I think, all right, well, maybe it just means Sutton's going to be open more because they're going to concentrate on Judy more. And maybe he benefits there. That's where my head goes when I hear that. But at the same time, how many opportunities is that going to mean? How many more does that equate to? That's I guess the real question, like you said. So yeah, I like the logic there. I think T. Higgins may be the play against
all
the Jets.
The unknowns. The unknowns.
That's why we're here talking about it on Tuesday night at 10:30 Eastern Standard, 9:30.
Absolutely.
Central.
Absolutely. All right, we're over the hour mark. Do we want to give some quick waiver wire picks?
Yeah, let's do a couple waiver. Let's pick a quarterback, a running back, a receiver, and or whatever. You go, hit the button.
Okay, we hit the button. We're off and running. We got week 8
go first.
Pickups. Go for it. Give us your guys.
All right. You know what? So you love. I'm going to say Carson Wentz again. Rostered in 37% of the leagues. I think, despite playing in that extremely wet conditions, I think, tough defense, he still looked good. I like the guy. I think he got Jonathan Taylor doing his thing. I just think Wentz being healthier is just, the Colts are turning into a contender. I like what they're doing, and I think that means fantasy points at the quarterback spot. The sleeper is Teddy Bridgewater, your boy. I think rostered in 20% of the leagues. I think getting Jerry Jeudy back means more production for Mr. Bridgewater. 2 quarterbacks that I thought are guys you should look to try to pick up right now. Over to you, Mr. Johnson.
All right. Man,
did I steal yours?
Guy. You grabbed my guy.
Jeudy? Bridgewater?
Bridgewater, yeah.
I was like, he can't pick 3 fucking Broncos, so I was like, he's not going to say it.
You'd be amazed. I thought
you were going to say Geno Smith or something like that. But.
Oh, God. Oh, man, that was painful to watch. With Geno Smith out on the field trying to
So if I took your quarterback, why don't you go running back?
No, I'll give you another. I'll give you another quarterback here.
He's quick on his feet. I like.
I hate saying this name. I really do.
Don't do it.
But I'm gonna do it anyway because I just. Are
you drunk?
God. I just like no. There's just something about this guy that drives me up a wall, but I can't quit him. Just again based on matchups and everything else that goes into it. I'm gonna say, even though Denver is pretty legitimate, I'm going on the opposite side of this matchup and going Taylor Heineke again.
Rostered in 40% of the leagues. I like it.
He's starting to climb. Starting to climb, and again, it has shown some decency at quarterback. I mean, 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions isn't much. He got screwed against the Packers.
Oh my God! How about that bullshit call, huh? The QB rule change, that was some bullshit.
That killed me. But he had a great game. Honestly, it should have been a much better game looking at the stat line. But I like the way that things are trending for him, and it honestly wouldn't shock me to see him keep it up.
That's a good. That he's actually on my list. So that was nice that that you said him. That makes me feel good. The fantasy stat king knows that. I'm feeling good about myself right now. You want to go first on the running back tip?
Wise,
we talked about one of them already ad nauseum, I think.
Yeah, we talked about Kenneth Gainwell.
Rostered 21%.
That's an obvious one. That you need to go out and you need to get him. I am going to say that Rashad Penny isn't probably going to be the guy in Seattle, given the fact that he looked terrible.
Yeah, I started him last night. I had no choice. All my guys are out. I grabbed him last minute, and I got beat by 50 points, but whatever. It's the one league that I am absolutely awful in, and it's depressing, and it's a league with all my friends, and my buddy Jay, who listens to the show, it's fucking awful that my team sucks in the Sugar Shack League. It's just disgusting. I have one win, so yeah, it's bad.
I
won the chip a couple years ago, but yeah, this is no good this year.
But anyway. The other guy that I like, he is over 50%, so I can't say his name. I thought he had dropped back below 50 again, but he had not.
Who?
JD McKissick. He's in the 60 range. So he's like 58, 60%. Antonio Gibson's a ticking time bomb with this shin injury. And at some point, he's going to miss time. He's going to miss time. And if any time there is to get his backup, it's probably now before the injury happens, so you're not finding yourself in a similar boat. So I'm going to bend the rules a little bit and say JD McKissick.
And to piggyback your point, though, Stephen, he's a guy, if you were to grab, you definitely then look in your roster who has him, Gibson, and you say, hey, let's make a deal. Then you package him with somebody else. You fill a need that you need on your team. You give him that handcuff and whatever bullshit player that you send your way. And you help yourself out. Some strategy there, depending on where you are, money-wise, waiver claim-wise, whatever. Food for thought, some strategy involved there, you know?
Yep. Absolutely.
I got another running back for you, though.
Who you got?
Fucked me last week because I started the healthy scratch over in New England. I think J.J. Taylor rostered in 1% of the leagues. He's a sleeper. I think he's a guy to think about. 2 touchdowns last week. He looked really good. Granted, they blew the fuck out of the Jets, but he looked good. And you never know with Belichick. He's a guy that, you could have picked up Bolden too. He's rostered in 6% of the league. So you have your pick of the litter there when it comes to New England running backs. But Harris obviously is back in good graces with Belichick.
Yeah, what the hell happened there?
He threw the pictures away he had or whatever, and it's no longer, but
that's short-term memory at its best.
But it's something to think about, those two guys. If I gave you bad advice on Stevenson last time, trying to redeem myself, J.J. Taylor probably cost you $0, and you could probably pick him up tomorrow morning after you wake up. You're sitting on the can. You got any wide receivers?
Wide receivers, I'm going addition by subtraction at wide receiver. For all we know, he could be a close contact by the time Thursday's game rolls around. Randall Cobb is the guy that I like this week. If you really are desperate at wide receiver and need to plug somebody, Alan Lazard is not going to play on Thursday.
To plug somebody.
Adams obviously probably not going to play. Rodgers has to throw to somebody, so why not the one?
Well, Jordy Nelson's he's driving his tractor over to Green Bay to fucking to play with to Rodgers, to hop on the plane to play with the Rodgers and the boys. They're gonna get fucking smacked by the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's not looking too great. It's not looking too great for that Packers offense right now. MVS starting, Marquise Valdez-Scantling, and that's not asking a whole heck of a lot. But yeah, addition by subtraction this week, a quick spot start. My pick goes to Randall Cobb to get probably north of 10 targets in this game. How about you?
I'm staying in the NFC North division with a sleeper, Khalif Raymond, rostered in 3% of the leagues. He's caught at least 6 balls in every game, 3 out of 5 games. He's caught at least 6 balls. I'm sorry. His 4th straight with 6 targets. Probably going to avoid Darius Slay in week 8. Could have a productive game. I like him. He's got to get some comeuppance here. He should get some respect. Put some respect on this man's name. Been around the league, 4 teams. He is producing. Him and Goff have a connection. We've talked about it all season, or maybe I have, regarding the bond with a quarterback and a receiver. There's clearly something going on there, with respects to their connection, and it's demonstrating it's equaling production on the field. And I like Khalif rostered in 3%. A guy that had a good week last week that's rostered in 10% of the leagues is Russell Gage in Atlanta. Another guy I think you could go out and sneak, grab. It's just some guys to think about. There's many receivers due to the fact that, the way the league is, you can fill many needs. If you have some injuries there, even a last minute COVID cancellation, you could pick somebody up and help yourself out. Darius Slayton's out there. Rashad Bateman, 32%. I know we liked him, and T.Y. lastly at 36% rostered. He's a dude that if he stays healthy, I think Wentz could, definitely, put up some good quality numbers with him also.
All right. There you go.
And Ernesto, yes, I would keep Rashad Bateman over A-Rob.
Oh, God, that's painful.
Yep. All day.
How damn painful is that?
I would trade A-Rob for Rashad Bateman.
Man.
Am I wrong, Stephen?
No, you're not.
Nah,
that's the worst part. That's the worst part. Tight ends, very quickly, mentioned this guy last week, picking him up during his bye week, so you'd have him this week. Pat Freiermuth with the Steelers, again, had 7 targets, 7 catches for 58 yards last week in their game, and now it's the Browns, who have not looked great defensively. Another one, Jared Cook, really like as well. He's had at least 7 targets and a touchdown in 2 of his last 3 games, so really starting to get that rapport down with Justin Herbert. So things working in the right direction there if you are streaming tight ends, and potential to give you some tight end 1 numbers when it is all said and done. So those are my 2 guys. Yeah.
I'm just going to add, being a homer here, Cole Kmet, I brought him up last week, had his best production on the year. The offense sucked last year, and he still had 5 receptions for 43 yards, nothing exciting. Hasn't cracked 50 yards in a game yet this year, but it was a decent showing. You have Darren Waller and Mark Andrews coming off it. They have buys this week. Hey, if you need Colt, you need somebody, you may be able to grab him. You talked about CJ Uzama, rostered in 6% of the leagues. And this is a guy like that you talked about last week, Mo Alley Cox, rostered in 17%. So, there's
had a touchdown.
There's some tight end play. Even Evan Ingram is rostered out, in only 31% of the leagues. I can't believe I'm saying it, and some people may smack me for saying that name. But I just
the pain.
There are many options there. Logan's out of his mind, by the way. He's got a long way to go. He might as well keep trading because got to come through Captain Justin Fields at this point. So.
I'm just slowly fading to the back of the pack. My injury bug is not doing too hot for me here.
Yeah.
It's pain. It is pain. But hey, maybe I'll hit up some of these waiver wire pickups. And
you're gonna have to do something, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, gotta do something, or else it's gonna be too late. Gonna be too late. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for One Up Fantasy this week as we break it all down, getting you ready for week number 8. And then week 9 right around the corner. We'll be in Pittsburgh. It's already here. It's weird. It's already here. Bears, Steelers, Monday night.
Better win that fucking game.
I told my wife we should have waited to buy tickets because they are so much cheaper right now than they were at the beginning of the year. So F me, should have done that, did not do it, paying the price.
Hey, you know what? It's still going to be a good time.
Oh, yeah, it will be a good time. It's a great stadium. It's a great atmosphere. Looking forward to it for sure.
I love
Absolutely. Keeping it 100 tomorrow night. 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, a Halloween special.
Yes,
keeping it 100. So I'm sure there'll be all sorts of shenanigans planned for that one. And then we'll be back right here next Tuesday night, same time, same place, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, with a brand new One Up Fantasy. Who knows? Maybe I'll have my Twitter account back by then. Twitter
Bastards. Fuckers. Help this man out. Come on. Fucking Russian bot stole your shit.
So, for the time being, Stephen Shy City is the new Twitter handle until all this gets figured out, and God knows what else is happening. It's been a great Tuesday,
Stephen
folks.
Johnson. I'm Chris Jackle.
That you are.
This is One Up Fantasy. Have a great night, everybody.
We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.